Hello, everyone. Sorry for the late start. We were just waiting on a few more people to join us. And so as they join us, we will just get going with our regular introductions and all of that. My name is Talitha McCloskey. I, along with Skylar Gerard and our moms, Gwen Keith and Marlene Smadu, just one of her, are the founders of RaiseHER Community, and we're super delighted to have you here today. We are embarking on our final event of our lead series, which is rooted, this season is rooted in around linking your community. And today we'll be chatting with 4 amazing local leaders who work in diverse industries and have a wide range of leadership insights to share. So our moderator, Marlene Smadu, Tracy Zambory, Yaya Wang, Terry Jordens, and Jaime Boldt will be joining us. Skylar will do a little bit more of an introduction for them in a few minutes. In addition to connecting compassionately with others and gathering the courage to challenge the process, as we've touched on in the last over the last 2 months with our first 2 sessions. Another key leadership behavior that we've recognized as being central to the success of linking one's community is the art of crucial conversations. To us, challenging the process is having the support and courage to take risks, ask questions, be uncomfortable, and have the foresight to do things differently and make spaces better and more inclusive for all. Today, we are lucky enough to hear experiences and wisdom from the 4 amazing leaders in our community who practice the art of crucial conversations on a daily basis in their careers. We will welcome questions in the chat throughout the hour, and we'll address them either during or after, just depending on what the context of the question is. So please feel free to enter that. Just make sure that your chat is toggled to the everyone option. So before we get started, and as always with all of our events, we do a land acknowledgement to acknowledge Treaty 4 from where we are currently broadcasting. So I welcome you to just stop eating for a minute, to put down your phone, and to take in this land acknowledgement with an open heart. RaiseHER Community acknowledges and honors the Indigenous lands on which we live and work, the traditional land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We pay respect to the Indigenous peoples who have lived and continue to live on this territory and whose culture, practices, and spirituality are tied to this land. We acknowledge our own settler ancestry and the colonization that has created oppression, suffering, and hardship for Indigenous peoples for many generations. Through acknowledgement of the history, land, and people of Treaty 4 territory, we demonstrate our respect to First Nations and Métis communities and people, and commit to act on truth and reconciliation through listening, seeking to understand, and growing stronger together. Our lead series conversations will be grounded in the ideals of love, compassion, and mutual respect. We encourage you to post comments and questions in the chat throughout, as I've already mentioned, while our guests are speaking. And of course, you're allowed to feel what you feel, but if you antagonize our speakers in any way, we will intervene and you may be removed from the session. This does not mean that you cannot ask open questions. We need to ensure that we are protecting ourselves, protecting our speakers, and protecting our space. And note that all of our speakers have our support to pass on any questions they may not feel comfortable answering. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my partner in crime, Skylar, and she will launch us into our next piece.
Hi, everyone. I'm Skylar. Thanks again for joining us this afternoon. So just to quickly go through a couple introductions, we have some really great people here today I'd like you to meet. So first off, community and support are some of our core values at RaiseHER Community. And so each quarter we donate a portion of our proceeds to a organization locally that is supporting the well-being of women, which completely aligns with our purpose as well. And so this season, we've decided to partner up with the Regina Open Door Society, and they will be the ones receiving our proceeds. And so this organization, if you're not aware, works directly with the community, and they're geared towards compassionately helping set up newcomers for success. And so here today, we actually have Kalina, and she is from the Regina Open Door Society, and she's going to do a quick introduction about what they're all about, just for your all awareness, and then we'll get right into some of the introductions of the panelists. So I'll pass it off to you, Kalina.
Hi there, Skylar. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Kalina Brill-Taman. I am one of the employer liaisons at our Regina Open Door Society. And this is a nonprofit organization that provides settlement and integration services to refugees, immigrants, newcomers to Regina. And RODS is committed to meeting the needs of newcomers by offering programs and services that enable them to achieve their goals and participate fully in the larger community. That can range from our settlement department that will be helping with programs like Kids First and settlement support workers in schools and youth programs, helping expecting parents welcome a new child into a family in a new country with a new language, right? All the way to my department in employment services, where we help people transition to the Canadian workplace. And we have, different programs, whether that be for youth, different people who maybe have 10 years plus experience in their field and bring a lot of international expertise and just need the connections to get launched into their careers. So we do a wide range of different programs, and the values are the same in that we are focused on diversity, respect, and dignity. We believe in a welcoming community enriched by the diversity and strength of newcomers to Canada. And so we're very grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, and we're super thankful for you for all the things, amazing work that you do in our community. So we're very happy to support. She is the acting chair of the University of Regina Board of Governors, and she's a retired registered nurse. And of course, she's also a co-founder of RaiseHER Community. She's Talitha's mom. So welcome, Marlene.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jaime Boldt. Jaime, if you want to pop onto screen, perfect. Jaime Boldt is the executive director of the Globe Theatre in Regina and is a strong community development expert with decades of experience. So we're excited to hear from Jaime. And next we have Terry Jordens. Terry Jordens is the Superintendent of Student Services and Assessment for Holy Family Roman Catholic School, separate school division. And her main goal through her work is to create effective collaboration between the school and family by building trust. Welcome, Terry. And next we have Tracy Zambory. Tracy Zambory is a registered nurse and the president of the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses. Through her work, she advocates for an expanded and strengthened universal healthcare systems for all Canadians. Welcome, Tracy. And finally, we have Yaya Wang. Yaya is the head of Human Resources for Canada for the North American division of German-based agricultural equipment manufacturing company CLAAS Global Sales. She is an experienced human resources professional, passionate about how people create business-changing cultures. So welcome, Yaya. So that is our panel today. I'm super excited to have all of you, and I'm going to pass it right off to Marlene to jump right into our exciting discussion.
Thank you so much, Skylar. And it will indeed be exciting and fruitful for all of us, because this is a powerhouse panel. And our topic is very specific. We at RaiseHER are very interested in supporting women in all walks of life, all professions, all ages, to continue to develop their leadership skills. And crucial conversations, holding crucial conversations, according to the literature, is one of those things that's often tough to do, but absolutely critical to do as a leader. I'm going to ask the panelists about why, but I'm going to just give you a definition of crucial conversations. And the kind of the seminal work in this is a book by Patterson, Grenny, McMillan, and Switzer called Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. And I think it's very popular because I tried to get it from the public library, and I've had the hold in place for about 6 months now. So I was just curious to see whether people are interested in looking at this kind of literature. Their definition is that a crucial conversation is a discussion between two or more people where the stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. I think we can all identify with having to have those kinds of conversations. So I'm going to ask the panelists each in turn. The first question is, why is the art of having crucial conversations an essential skill of being a leader? And I'm going to start with you, Terry.
Great. Well, first of all, the book you just mentioned just happens to be sitting right beside me on my desk. Yeah, it's one of my go-tos for sure in crucial conversations. So a great reference for that. First of all, obviously, if you're going to be a leader, you have to be prepared to have crucial conversations. They're part of the territory, no matter what. So you can either choose to be good at them or not be. So really, you have to have the skill to have crucial conversations, to move forward, to create resolution, and for the betterment of your organization in total. People are messy. So there's going to be a need for these difficult conversations, and you have to be willing to take them on. They do require practice, I will say. Yeah. When I first got into leadership role, I was not good at crucial conversations. I came from being an elementary classroom teacher. I could talk to a room full of kids all day. That's not a problem, but put me in a situation where I had to phone a parent and talk about something intense, you know, shaking, your breath, your heart rate pumps, you know, all those things, to have those crucial conversations with adults. It was terrifying for me. I didn't have the skills for it. I didn't want people to think I was mean. At heart, I'm really a people pleaser, and I avoided those kind of situations at all costs. So being moving into administration and leadership, I wanted to be a good leader, so I knew I had to deal with that and take that head on. So I focused on building my skill, took some formal training in it, and now I have those kind of crucial conversations all the time. So these difficult conversations really help you grow as a leader. They're a tool that you need to address problems on your team, but I'm finding it's also important to show other team members that you're willing to take on those conversations and deal with the toxicity in your workplace. So it really helps build team morale and confidence on there. So overall, really, it's a vital tool in your leadership toolkit.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah.
Funny, much like Terry, this book also, takes permanent residence on my desk. It certainly, for someone who works in HR, crucial conversations are a part of my day-to-day, whether it's performance management conversations, and up to and including terminations, injuries. This is something that I feel is just part of my world. But within the leadership team, it's really important to help coach all of our leaders to have those skills, because many rise to their leadership roles via hard skill in their practice of what it is that they do, and the people skill doesn't always pull through, right? And so, but then they're put in a position where they're having to have crucial conversations all of the time as they engage their team. Now, for me, I've tousled with this. Am I proud of being good at this, or am I torn about it? But I've become someone who's become good at terminating people. I don't know if that's a skill to be proud of necessarily, but I think from the receiving end, most people will experience termination once, maybe twice in their lifetime. Whereas from an HR perspective, I can go through this dozens of times in a month even. So it's quite the skill to have, because you're delivering some of the worst information that an employee is about to receive. It is all of the things that, Marlene had mentioned. It's posing opinions because they don't think that they should be leaving, very strong emotions and very high stakes, because we're talking about their livelihood. For me, one of the things I've learned is control what you can. And one of the only things you can control in those three things is the emotions from your side of this. To be empathetic is very important, but to not fuel into the emotions and really focusing on the facts. And I think dialogue skills are learnable. So with practice, the exposure of having to conduct terminations or difficult performance conversations, that's really the only way you can get better. Now, practicing isn't necessarily just truly delivering the act of. We often ask our managers to role play, and I know a lot of them cringe at those opportunities, but it really just filters through the process and puts your mindset into being able to face the different comebacks and situations that can present itself in a crucial conversation.
Great, thank you, Yaya. Jamie.
Hi, thanks so much. I actually, unlike Terry, I I grew up in the early times of my career in conflict. I'm a mediator by trade. So in 1998, I became a mediator. And so I feel like I've been in the mix of it, how to raise an issue, having crucial conversations for a long time. But one of the things that I was thinking about in this question was all the different spaces and places that, that I specifically, and a lot of us have the opportunity to lead in holding crucial conversations, whether that's at work, whether it's maybe we're, like for me, I'm on a board where it's an advocacy board, or as a coach, a mentor, as a parent. So I think, like, I'm a practitioner of restorative justice. And so I've this is just sort of something in my bones around bringing the issue forward, around accountability, around finding resolve. But I do think that there's sort of how I like to look at it is there's a sort of a sweet spot between like being obnoxiously aggressive and overly empathetic. So you kind of have to find your own way of kind of doing it. But, for me, I find, besides the fact I like to tell people I'm funny, and so that's one of the things that I use is humor, or sort of an easygoing way, but being authentic is really important. And I think that goes a long way in having conversations. And I also think that when I look at workplace, I'm a big proponent of building relationships. It's not just workplace, actually, just generally. And when you build a sound foundation and you start out by being authentic, where you are always being clear and concise, expectations are laid out very clearly. You're known for being that person. You're known for being the person that comes into a room and says, hey, got a bit of an issue here. Let's talk about this, because everything's been laid out early on in that foundation. And so the biggest issue about not raising an issue, and I think, or the biggest thing about not raising an issue, and I think that Yaya brought it up, is it hurts other people. So in an organization, the failure of a leader to do that has damaging effects on others and culture. And so, and that sits on the head of the leadership team. So that's why it's really important to have the conversations. And again, the appropriate level of conversation, not overly aggressive, but it's not, hand over the Kleenex box possibly. And it may be, but I guess if you sit down and have that crucial conversation, you'll find out where everybody's at. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
That's great. Thanks very much. Tracy.
Well, I've been a registered nurse now for 30 plus years. And so I've actually been having crucial conversations since the day I stepped foot on the floor of my long-term care facility in Stoughton, where I did all my nursing practice. Some of the most crucial conversations I had at the start of my career, and actually throughout, was, having to sit down and talk to people about end of life with their family. Some of the most crucial conversations that you can have with a human being is talking to them about their loved one and the care that they require. So, that's really where I cut my teeth on the ability to understand the importance of, of crucial conversations, the amount of emotion that needs to be brought in. But the biggest thing that I learned was empathy. You cannot enter into any conversation, particularly a crucial one where things are about to get very emotional, without empathy. And that doesn't mean that it is that you still don't have boundaries in your conversation, because you have to. It just has to happen. So as I went through my nursing career, I understood more and more and had more and more conversations with a very diverse group of people that were always coming and going at New Hope Pioneer Lodge in Stoughton, and the people that I dealt with there, whether it be staff, because I was in a supervisory role. I had to have crucial conversations with people on how they were managing their work, how they were presenting themselves, how they were functioning in the workplace, because we were all about how we were serving our residents and what they required. So I always had that as a touchstone, that I knew that I had to make sure that people were being cared for in the best way possible. And as I transitioned into my role at Sun, I mean, nothing prepares you for being put into the position as the president of a very large organization, answering to 10,000 people. And then being the chair of a board of directors where there's lots on the line. And I mean, these last 20 months has proven that we've had to have a massive amount of crucial conversations, and understanding that it is, you know, to go from the transition of a registered nurse actively practicing to the chair of a board and the president of a large organization. The decisions that I made as a registered nurse was the difference for someone between life and death. And I had to dial that back quite a bit. And that took some skills and a huge amount of self-reflection, because not everything that I needed to talk about was going to have an end result of someone perishing. There was that didn't have to come into any of the crucial conversations that I'm having now, outside of the ones that I've had to have around the managing of the pandemic, where I am back again into the life and death conversations that are having. That we need to have in this province with registered nurses and the rest of the healthcare team that's happening, and with the government, which has served to be a source of great frustration this last while. But it is, and not only as president is it with the 10,000 members, but we also have a staff that we manage, which I, along with the executive director, am part of. But it's I've learned a lot of self-reflection to understand that I have to present myself in an authentic way. I mean, it's about being vulnerable and being willing to say, you know, this is how it happened to me. This is how we can move ourselves forward with kindness. It is imperative in my mind that if you're going to have a crucial conversation, the underpinning has to be with empathy and with kindness. Are there boundaries? Are we going to have some hard decisions made? Yes, but it has to be done so people understand what's happening to them, what the road is going to look like, and how we're willing to walk down it together.
Thank you so much, Tracy. So I'm not going to do justice in summarizing, but a couple of things really hit me, because in our RaiseHER community, we have leaders at all levels. And basically, you've all said, it's not, you know, if you're going to have a crucial conversation as a leader, it's when, and being prepared for that, because in fact, they're inevitable. Might be with one or two people or a family. It might be with a whole organization, or as part of your role, like in HR. And I think your key messages around empathy, kindness, authenticity, being genuine is something that all of us as leaders are trying to work on all of the time. That if we develop no other skills than that ability to self-reflect and understand how we're doing in the situation, that we will, you know, if we develop that skill, we will continue to develop our leadership. That kind of self-reflection and understanding how we do in a situation leads me into the next two questions. And I've already told the panelists that they're really two sides of the same coin. So I want each of you, and this is where we really learn, is from your own stories, to give us an example of a crucial conversation that didn't go well, and what would you have done differently, or why didn't it go well? And then a crucial conversation that went well, and why do you think it went well? And the reason I'm posing them both now is because sometimes that's the same situation. Sometimes you go into a crucial conversation, it doesn't go very well, you kind of come back and reflect, and then you go back and do it again. So you can answer that question in any way you want, and I'm just going to mix up the order a little bit. I'm going to start with Jaime.
All right, thank you. So I appreciated when Marlene said that, because I kind of felt like, you know, I have a tough time thinking about when a crucial conversation didn't go well. And it's not that I haven't had any that didn't go the way that I thought they would go, or that it was planned. But what the take on, I think, has been just historical for me is, what can I learn? How can we move forward from this? That's not just the end, that one conversation. So as I said, like there's always an opportunity to learn, and there's sometimes the other parties aren't at that place. Maybe they're still in that defensive place and they don't want to be an active participant in the conversation. And I think Yaya said it, where like the only thing that I can control is me. I can't control the other side of that table, the other folks in the room. And so, you know, for me, I just take away some learning experiences. Some of the questions I might ask if things didn't go as, you know, as I'd hoped might be, was this the right place and time for this conversation? Was there any, and I'm a good debriefer, so, and I like to do that. I appreciate that opportunity. And was there something that I said that possibly triggered, and do I need to apologize for something that I said? And I'm really good at doing that in the moment, because I read people's faces and I go, that didn't land how I thought, and I'm sorry for that. But you know, sometimes it's reflecting on something that you may have said. And I think what I would say in anything that hasn't gone well, I'm very quick to leave an open door. Let's continue this conversation at a different time. Circle back if you want to talk about this further. Because I honestly, deep in my heart, believe that there's a way to find a common place through open and honest conversation and respectful dialogue. So, but yes, totally. There have been times where things have just ended and I've gone, oh, geez, that didn't go how I wanted. But again, it's an opportunity for self-reflection. So, you know, when things did go really well, I suppose those are those moments, you know, and when I was thinking about this question, I was going, what are the things that are like flashy and sparkly that, you know, I'd like to share with you, like getting John Howard back into walking through jails and doing advocacy for men in jails. That took a lot of crucial conversations with the deputy directors, and that was really tough stuff. And now John Howard, I was the CEO of John Howard Society of Saskatchewan for some years, and so that was a lot of work, and those were tough times that I was really proud of. But it's not the sparkly one that really stuck out in my mind. And the one example that I want to share was kind of, it was a crucial conversation that happened when I was, you know, midway through my career. And I, again, really prided myself on building relationships. And so I had a young gal who was in labor. She'd been in an interpersonal violence relationship, and actually a nurse had called me while she was in labor as her support person. Her partner was in there, and we ended up having to call the police. So a day later, she was flagged as someone whose baby probably should be looked into, the care of her child. And they just showed up and they had a car seat and they were taking baby. And so I got a hysterical phone call. And so that crucial conversation that day, you know, and these are sometimes the things, and I think, you know, as a nurse and someone in the health field, you're dealing with kind of these really life and death moments. And that for me was what I was thinking that day. Like, we have a mom whose baby's being taken. She can't even hear what's being asked of her. And so that conversation was some de-escalation, some asking for some empathy from the worker, and coming to a common ground where it wasn't win-win, but baby was still with mom. We went outside of town to Musha. But the key to that for me was I needed to understand, you know, it wasn't that this young mom was choosing this abusive partner. She just didn't know the options for her, and leaving the city was something she had never done in her entire life. And so now she had to go to Moose Jaw. Where's Moose Jaw? What's Moose Jaw? So just kind of breaking things down and understanding the perspectives of the different people in the room, and then helping everyone come to a resolve that, again, it wasn't win-win, but for me, that, you know, it's those kind of moments when you have a crucial conversation and you do it well, and you do it with respect and empathy and kindness, that the outcomes they're okay. And those are things I can put my head on my pillow at the end of the night and go to sleep on. So
that's great, Jaime. Thank you. And you did address very well both sides of that coin. Tracy, I'm going to ask you to go next.
When I read the questions, which conversation I was going to talk about for the one that didn't go well, it was, we needed to make a big decision as a board of directors. And I felt like I had to go in there and I had to make that decision happen in the positive. And I had already had a pre-cooked way of how I was going to present this, that I needed to be able to push my agenda until I got what I needed, because I felt like it was the stake of the 10,000 members on the line. Like I had turned it into such a dramatic event in my mind that I needed to be able to go in there and push and literally bully my way to a positive outcome. Well, it did not go at all the way I wanted it to. I mean, surprise, surprise. You know, when I can sit back now and reflect on it, this was, you know, early in my presidency, when I was still in such a life or death way of thinking about how I needed to have conversation or get decisions made, that, you know, the whole thing was going to fall apart if I wasn't able to accomplish this very important decision. And, in retrospect, it really was an insulting way to approach 11 other very smart, intelligent, full-time registered nurses who have been elected into a position same as myself. I didn't approach it in any way to make it any sort of crucial conversation or follow any literature on it. It was really, to put it plainly, it turned into a shit show. It did not go well. The decision did actually eventually come to a positive conclusion that needed to be, but not in the fashion that I tried to push it there. And it put me into understanding that I had to let go of my own way of thinking, that it wasn't actually about what I needed and wanted. I was putting too much personal stake in it, and understood that I needed to listen with as much passion as I was trying to push an issue forward. And it was a huge learning curve for me to understand that this is not how a good leader leads. A good leader does not do it through bullying, through pushing, through cutting people off, and generally just being very poor at every portion of trying to be a leader that is possible, and thinking, my God, how did I ever land myself in this situation? I'm just a registered nurse. What the hell am I doing here? And in fact, I needed to be there. I had just not, I hadn't found my way yet on how to be a good communicator, and understanding that I didn't have ownership of how other people were going to come to an issue. My job as a leader was to make sure that they had the information that was required to be able to come to the conclusion, and giving credit to a group of very smart people who were working in the same area in which we needed to make this decision come to fruition. And once I was able to sit in that, to understand it, to, take my lumps, which I very much deserved, but knew that, but also to that, I think we have to understand that if we have a crucial conversation that doesn't go well, and the outcome maybe takes a long time to get there, and it's a painful journey, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a leader. It is not, it's a part of the learning journey that we take forward. What is very important is that we take that time to sit in that, and to think it through, and to understand the role that we played in it, and take that ownership of, what did I do here, and what could I do better, and making sure that we do get ourselves on the path of doing better. And don't be afraid to speak to people about, I need to circle back with you because I think I did some things and said some things that weren't helpful and were non-productive. And I really want to circle back with you and have a discussion where I can have some learning on how it is that I can approach such important issues in a better way that's respectful to you, it's respectful to me, and it's respectful to the people that we represent. And I will never forget that conversation and the actions that happened after, but I also won't forget how it was the start of my growth as a leader and my understanding that how to grow and how to learn, because it really is not about me, it's about the people that I represent.
Excellent example, Tracy. And I know that even though sometimes it's hard to share, we often learn the most from things that don't go well, because we really do have to do that reflection that you've all spoken about. Terry, how would you address the ones that didn't go well and and perhaps one that didn't go well and one that went well?
Yes, thank you. Well, I completely agree with the other two panelists. Already spoke about the progression of it. It's often not just a one-time conversation and it goes great or doesn't go great and you just leave it. So definitely my example starts in the didn't go well to ending up going well. Good. So really this conversation that I had was about with a parent and a meeting at a school, having to do with the parents and their child with some major behavior and safety concerns. So we decided to call a team meeting about that. Our goal was, and Tracy, I really loved your term of that pre-cooked, because in my head, I had a goal of exactly how that meeting was supposed to look and what my point was in it. So I went in to the meeting, only mom showed up. There was 6 of us from, the school division side sitting across from her, and it was just mom. So I should have known right away, but we continued with our meeting, and I had my idea of, I wanted to lay out to mom, exactly what we were seeing in her kid at school and the things that were going on. So we proceeded with doing that, listing all the negative things and behaviors that were going on at the school. And the next agenda item was for mom to sort of give us an update on how things were going at home. So point was to partnership up and learn from each other. Well, mom's response was one word, fine. And she was looking down at the floor. So I knew right away, like, obviously this situation isn't working. At the time, this is very early in my career. So at the time, I didn't really know how to come back from that. So we continued on, for a little bit, didn't get anything more from mom. She was completely shut down in that situation. So called the meeting to a close, but walked away knowing this is going to take some time. So really, like the other panelists said already, reaching out, making that human connection, listening to her story, first of all. So I took the avenue of just making some personal phone calls to her, just between her and I, learning a little bit more about her. She had her own traumatic experience with school. So even walking into a school was something that bothered her. Having obviously 6 of us in the room with her was not a good idea. Even the fact she at one point had called me a suit, right? Being on that division side. So really for me, that was like a wake up call, and being cognizant of how I'm presenting myself in meetings with parents. So that was something else to be purposeful of. But, over the year, getting to know mom, listening to her story, respecting who she was, and just getting to a better place with her, and just having personal connection with her. So we really were able to get to the right place. And those crucial conversations did have to happen. We did have to deal with what was going on with her child and making the school a better and safer place for him. So they continued to happen, but we did get to a good place with them when I learned how to respond to her in the right way and listen to her story.
Well, and it's clearly a learning journey. And we're going to hear from Yaya, but then I'm going to ask a question that's on the chat room about, how do you develop the skills? We're not all born with them, and there's lots of different ways we can get them. And sometimes that's through our own life experiences. But Yaya, can you share your stories?
Yeah, so for me, as I mentioned, in being in HR, termination, difficult performance conversations, really littered all over my day-to-day. However, a few years ago, I was faced with a situation where I had to deliver the news to an employee who had sustained a career and life-changing injury. This was by far the biggest injury I've ever dealt with. And, I think I was starting to maybe dip into Tracy's territory where I'm just not experienced in. I face off on all types of issues during a termination, and I've really mastered the skill of addressing them. And this was brand new territory for me. One of the main takeaways from the Crucial Conversation book and course that I did take was really removing assumptions and mastering your story. So what that means is, tying it into this situation, when I was on the phone with this employee, he was a remote employee in a province as far away from me as possible, the other end of Canada. And it's in this virtual world, things are changing, things are difficult now to deliver terrible news. What ended up happening was he blamed me. I became his point of contact, and he had to channel and project all his anger with this injury onto someone somewhere. And I was the chosen one. And it was a lot. And I remember thinking, what the heck? I am doing and busting my ass and doing so much to help you through this, applying for all these programs and meeting deadlines that he was not really cooperating with, to put him on different programming and help him through this most difficult time. And he thinks this is my fault. There were actual times where he would call and say, you have, bad word, ruined my life. This is your fault. It was so difficult for me to take that. I've never been in that situation. And so it took me a while to take a step back from the situation. And again, focusing on what can I remove, which was my emotional attachment to this situation of feeling blamed when I'm working so hard to help. And really in my head, the story I was telling myself is, oh my God, he's mad at me. He thinks this is my fault. He must really hate me. He must, this is what I'm fabricating in my head. But essentially, when you take a step back and look at the situation, he's just angry and he's just expelling words. He's just getting it out. To be honest, I'm not even sure he remembers the next day his anger towards me. He just has anger. And this isn't me. This is not personal. It was really difficult to take a step back out of this high stakes, high emotion situation. Now, of course, over the last few years, I'm still his key point of contact, and every conversation is crucial throughout this journey of his injury. I've learned a lot of changing how I approach it, how I disengage myself emotionally from a personal perspective and focusing on the facts and accepting and allowing his displacement of anger, understanding and being empathetic that he's got to channel this somewhere. And I'd rather it be me than his family or those that are around him, really trying to support him on a day-to-day basis. So, I think in this situation, I wouldn't approach it. We're just going to accept it as is. But what I really relate to it is in my personal life, I do that often too. I tell stories and you make these assumptions. This person must feel this way because, but when you approach and open up these crucial conversations, one thing that really helps is, hey, the story I'm telling myself is you are behaving this way because these are the actions I'm experiencing, but giving the other person that opportunity to really address the issue. Now, to work on us, it starts with me. So someone here has to bridge that gap and open that topic. And one thing I think I would challenge everyone, one of the key skills I've taken away and I'm still trying to implement into my daily practice is using and instead of but. So how can we address this and ensure our feelings aren't hurt? Instead of saying, how can we address this, but make sure, that but really changes the tone of the conversation. And to address Skylar and Marlene's question here about how do you help your team to better learn this, as corny as it is, I know our managers cringe about role playing, but it really helps. And when you start presenting it from the other perspective, and you ask them to be the employee, put yourself in the shoe of the employee, what questions would you have? And then you practice, because really the only way to get better at learning this skill is exposure and practice. I think the other important thing is following up. There are different methods and keywords that you can adapt into your vocabulary. That's really just going to help you get more comfortable and always bringing it back to focusing on the facts. I think it's a learning progress for everyone, and it's a life learning process. But one thing that I think really connected with our managers as they went through this process was they're relating it to their daily personal lives, something that they're very experienced in. You know, I've had a few of them say, hey, I have this fight with my wife all the time, and this book has really, this process has really enlightened me. Now I'm able to see it from a different perspective. So applying it to a situation that they are very familiar with, and then trying to translate some of those similar skills and bringing over the similar type of empathy to work, to their professional experience. You know, I think that has really shown a lot of success in just sort of connecting the skill from practice.
Great, thanks, Yaya. So you did address the one question that's in the chat. We have two questions in the chat. So I'm going to ask Tracy to comment on what you've just commented on, and that is, how do you help people who you're trying to bring up as leaders? This might be other board members for you, Tracy, or whatever. How do you help them to develop the crucial conversation skills? And then I'm going to turn to Terry and Jaime to talk, to answer the question about setting a tone for a crucial conversation. How do you create that culture and environment, especially if there might be culture or language barriers? So I'm going to just let you ponder that. It's going to be a bit of a rapid round because we're at 12:55. So I'm going to ask you to give a couple key messages around those questions. Tracy, how do you help people?
It's gone by so fast.
I know.
Well, I mean, what we're doing is we're introducing different ways of education and bringing in different people to work with us, and having some learning experiences. We're looking at governance models, but we're really looking more so at the humanity of conversation and how to have that empathy. Because I think as registered nurses, we that's who I work with every day. It's registered nurses through and through. And they've been having crucial conversations in their careers from day one. And you learn it on the floor when you enter into the building, whether you do them good or not off the start, you eventually get there. And if you have a good leader, a good manager, which is, a whole nother topic we could talk about someday, that person hopefully can help mentor through that. But as a board of director, we are very committed to understanding how to communicate, making sure that we can communicate with one another. And we do that through dedicated education, that we want to be able to communicate with each other, have great strategy sessions where we ask those generative questions. We have to do our strategic, we have to do our fiduciary. We're governed by law to do that. It's the generative discussion where we ask the big whats that we have to understand how we can pull that out of one another and have those big what crucial conversations with each other. And that translates itself when we go out and have those public conversations, that we can generate discussion and make people feel comfortable. And I know we need to be rapid, but one crucial conversation for me that went really well was with the Tri-City Emergency Room registered nurses in Saskatoon, who were feeling absolutely gutted and we're getting nothing. And how I set that, because they were very angry. I was the conduit of their anger because they were being treated so terribly. And I thought, okay, I can't go in there with any attitude. I have to go in there with a complete open mind. And I opened with empathy and completely acknowledging where they are, how they had been treated, and what was happening to them. And it was just, you could just feel the tension go away from everybody on the conversation. And I think that's how you win a crucial conversation. That's how you're able to sit into it and get it going in the good way, is to absolutely acknowledge the person across the table or the people across the table, and talk about where they're at and acknowledge what brought them there. And I think that was the game changer for me.
Excellent example. Thank you, Tracy. So Terry, the question about how do you set the tone and the context, especially if people perhaps don't have the same background, and this will certainly relate to the newcomers. That was Kalina that was asking that question.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think first of all, listening more than you talk. So setting that tone of listening, being open, checking your biases. Especially when you're dealing with newcomers as well. So any biases you have, just keep those away. Making that personal connection first, like Tracy was just saying too, and showing people your heart and that you care about them and you care what they're going to say before anything else is more important. So show them your heart before you take their hand and lead them where you need to go. So that, I think, is the most important part. For us here, we're really like about hospitality, to be honest. Treat them well, give them a drink, give them a snack. Like those sorts of things matter when you're having those conversations, that they feel like they're welcome and at home and being respected.
Excellent point. Yeah. Jaime.
Sure. Without being redundant, just to top off sort of what Terry said, and it's all about forging those relationships and stuff. But one of the things that we know is when we're engaged in a difficult conversation, we often use a lot of words. We say too many words. And so what I think is effective in working with newcomer population is to be a little more concise and clear in your language, and maybe less wordy, because lost in translation with, can happen very easy. And so that would just be my advice. And in terms of body language, I'd spend a lot of time thinking about my body language and how that is impactful and can be impactful. So even when Terry said, before you take their hand, but taking their hand is great, just showing that empathy, because maybe the words are not there, but to be able to, put a hand on someone's shoulder or, and to be able to, I'm a hug kind of, not hug a thug like I was accused of by police years ago, but that there is that way to show without words that you care about somebody if it's an appropriate situation. And I also just want to say, in terms of developing leaders, and I know this wasn't my topic, but I just want to say and make an acknowledgement about how valuable this conversation is for up and coming leaders. And I have an up and coming leader who I'm raising. She's 23 years old. She's doing her master's in Georgetown in foreign services, international development. And I was telling her what I was doing. By the way, she does really interesting things. I love to read her papers. And so it feels like I'm back at school getting taught by so many brilliant people in Georgetown. And we were chatting on the weekend and I said, I'm doing this thing and this is with the topic, and kind of went through it. And she goes, Mom, I just had a class that said that. And the teacher said to us, the instructor said, we need to start teaching you guys how to have these difficult conversations. And so I just thought, so smart, like good for you guys for bringing that up today. So I just wanted to get that out there. Oh, and also this is my book beside me that I didn't show before, but it's called Radical Candor and it's by Kim Scott. I had to sit on a panel about it. There's some things I like that I don't, but it shows how to create a leadership environment where crucial conversations are the norm. So it's actually a very good book to talk about that. You can also scrap probably half of it, but not a total book plug.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I am absolutely thrilled by all of our presenters. I've been around a long time and I've learned something from each of you. And that's exactly what RaiseHER Community is all about, to keep learning and growing together. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Skylar.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you all of you. To all of you, you've all shared tons of wisdom, tons of tips. I'm a growing leader myself, and I feel like I'll never stop growing as a leader. So all of these pieces are like invaluable. Thank you as well to our attendees. I know you're probably itching to get back to your meetings and your day. So I want to just quickly draw your attention to the survey in the chat. If you fill it out, we'll send you $5 towards a credit towards our store. So please do take the time. We really value your feedback, and stay tuned for our next series that'll be launching soon, all around the theme of evoking inspiration of others, which is another critical skill set of a leader. So thank you all very much. We wish you a warm and safe day out there on the roads, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. See you.
Bye.